Alright, today we're going to be looking at how to find the midpoint of a segment. And so the midpoint is really just what it sounds like. It's the point in the middle of a line, halfway between the 2 points. To give a more formal definition, we could say in line segment AC, if there is a point on the line segment B such that AB equals BC, then B is the midpoint of AC. And so what this is saying is here you've got this point B. It's in the middle of points A and C, such that the length from A to B is the same as B to C. It's just the point in the middle of the 2 points. So our examples that we're going to be doing will look like this. Find the midpoint between A at 4, 7 and C at -2, -5. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this from the graph. So I've got the point A and C. A is at 4, 7, which is going to be right here. And C is at -2, -5, which is right here. And so we are looking for that point halfway between. So if we kind of eyeball where it's at, I would guess about right here. So you could kind of guess. And you can check it to see if it's correct. So here I'm going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 1, 2, 3. Right here I'd go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and over 1, 2, 3. So I would know that those two are the same length. The coordinates of this point right here are 1, 1. Now, that one was fairly easy to do just by looking at the graph. However, sometimes this doesn't work out so well because sometimes the midpoint is not exactly on those grid lines perfectly. Sometimes your numbers are too big to fit on the graph. So it's nice to have another way to do this. And the other way that we're going to use is the midpoint formula. And so our midpoint formula is this. Our midpoint is going to equal x1 plus x2 divided by 2, comma, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And so let's just think about what we're doing here. If we do this, we are taking the x's and we're adding them together. So like for this particular problem, this is our formula. We'll make sure we have that written down. Maybe put a star next to it, make sure we can find it in our notes. For this particular problem, we could do 4 plus -2. 4 plus -2 divided by 2. What we're doing right there when we do that is we're taking the average of the 2 points. We're finding the point halfway between 4 and -1. And when you do that, for that section, 4 plus -2 is 2. And then, of course, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So you're finding your x-coordinate and your y-coordinate separately here. It's not all together like it is with the distance formula. Also, make sure you see it's adding right here instead of subtracting like it is with the distance formula. You're adding together and dividing by 2. It gives you an average. So for our y's, we've got 7 and -5. So we have 7 plus -5 over 2. 7 plus -5 is 2. and 2 divided by 2 is 1. So there is our midpoint for this problem. Okay, let's try a few more. So, for example 2, let's find, let's see, line segment XY has a midpoint at Z if X is at 2, 5. And Y is at negative 9, 2. Find the coordinates of Z. And so I'm going to pull up a graph here for this one just so we can get a picture of what's happening here. So I've got the point 2, 5, 2, 5 is right here. That is X. And I've got negative 9, 2. Negative 9, 2 is our Y. These are the endpoints because this is line segment XY right here. And so we know that Z is the midpoint. Z is going to fall somewhere in here. But notice this doesn't really line up. I think it's probably about right there, but I don't really know what the coordinates of that are because it's not falling on the grid lines. So this is where it's really important to use that midpoint formula, which of course I'm going to write down again, x1 plus x2 divided by 2, and y1 plus y2 divided by 2. Just the average of the x's, average of the y's. So for this problem, x1, y1, x2, y2, and so we would have 2 plus negative 9 divided by 2, and we would have 5 plus 2 divided by 2. You're just taking the x's, 2 plus negative 9 divided by 2, it gives you an average. So this is going to be negative 7 over 2, which is negative 3.5 for our x coordinate. For our y's, we've got 5 and 2, the average of 5 and 2. 5 plus 2 is 7 over 2. And then that is going to give us positive 3.5. And if we look at this coordinates, these coordinates here, that looks about right for that point there. And so this is our answer. Okay? So this is helpful because sometimes it's difficult to find the midpoint whenever you are whenever you have points that are not going to line up perfectly on grid lines. All right, let's keep going. Let's do a couple more of these. So for this one, find the midpoint of negative 25, 7, and 17, 2. Okay, so for this, we're asked to find the midpoint. So again, we're using that formula. The formula says that we add together, divide by 2, add together, divide by 2. So for our x's, we're going to have negative 25 plus 17 divided by 2. Remember, adding right here, not subtracting. And then 7 plus 2 for our y's, divided by 2. And so negative 25 plus 17 is going to give you negative 8 divided by 2, and negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. Over here for our y coordinates, 7 plus 2 is 9 divided by 2, and then 9 divided by 2 is 4.5. So we have our midpoint right here. And you can always graph it to see if it looks right. These numbers are pretty big, so it's going to be a little hard to graph on graph paper. Let's do another. Example 4. We're going to have 8, negative 2, and 14, negative 18 here. So we're finding the midpoint for this. Our midpoint formula is to add our x's together, divide by 2. So we're going to have 8 plus 14 divided by 2. And then for our y's, we're going to have negative 2 plus negative 18 divided by 2. Always adding right here, although here where you're doing plus and negative, it's going to be like you're subtracting. 8 plus 14 is going to give us 22 over 2. And then here we'll get negative 20 over 2. So this is 11, and negative 20 divided by 2 is negative 10. So that gives us our midpoint for these points. So that's what you're going to be doing on this section. You will go to IXL B9, get yourself a SMART score of 90 on that, and let me know if you have any trouble.